Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Observations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Yes, that's right. Keep a lookout for the crowdfunding campaign for True Noir, based on the novels by Road to Perdition's Max Allan Collins, starring Todd Stashwick as Nathan Heller, Chicago PD turned private eye to the stars, coming next month, where you're going to actually hear a proof of concept for it. And if I do say so myself, it's pretty goddamn awesome. Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, yes, yet to be defined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, recovering from COVID for the third time. I know I'm feeling a little better. I was to be honest, this is kind of the roughest one. And you know, I made a crack. I just made a joke. First of all, I'm a firm believer in vaccinations. You know, it's really helped humanity. If you look at the history of vaccinations, they've helped humanity out. I made one joke about the fact that the only vaccination I ever got that I actually got the disease multiple times was COVID. And everyone jumped all over me. So, you know, I apologize for that. Boy, there's a lot of people. I can make a horribly racist or other offensive jokes, and I don't think I would get half the shitstorm I got on Twitter for making a crack about vaccinations. By the way, I wouldn't make horribly racist jokes on Twitter, but I'm sure people would come after me for those too. But it was very interesting to watch. See, what's really interesting to me, what people don't understand about me is, like, I'll make a joke about something. It does not necessarily mean that I'm espousing one point of view or another. I'm just making a joke, you know, and what's really interesting is people just want to mob to you and make sure you're on the right side of things. Here's what I wish people would understand. I listen to people of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, on both ends of the political spectrum. I don't care what your sexuality is. I don't care how you identify. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care where you're from. All I care about is I want you to be your authentic self. And I want you to bring it to me and tell me something I don't know. I will put you on this channel. I will delve into your material. I'll read your book. I'll read your article. Tell me something I don't know. I want you to know that I like people. All of this crazy, insane, wacky population on this planet Earth. People really that I even can't stand, and even the people I really can't stand, I'm still fascinated by them. So I read things they write. I watch videos they make. I'll watch interviews with people. And I don't understand why everyone's always jumping on me, thinking that if I'm watching something from someone, that is some kind of a tacit approval or endorsement of that person. It isn't necessarily an endorsement. It's not necessarily anything. It's just that I'm interested in what people have to say. Oh no, did this freeze? Has something gone wrong with this broadcast? Come on. Oh. Oh, I guess I'm back. So what I was saying was, it's very frustrating for me as somebody who is a seeker. I've always considered myself that. I am a seeker. I am an information sponge. I like to hear humanity's point of view. And I think we all should. But now everyone is so quick to condemn you for, like, there are people that I'm very good friends with that I don't necessarily agree with. Not all the time. But what I do want from those people, even if I disagree with what they're saying, as long as I know that they have conviction of what they're saying, that they're telling us their truth and being... Now, I don't believe that... I also believe in the truth. You might have a truth. This person might have a truth. That person over there, they've got a truth. That's not the truth. There is the truth. There is truth in the sense that right now, you know, if you're watching this, that I am here either talking to you live or you're watching this on a playback. You're watching my stream. That's a truth. That is irrefutable. It's happening. And to me, that's what truth is. Truth, it's not a perspective, you know. I can tell you right now, I know this to be absolutely true. If you were to climb up to the top of the Empire State Building and jump off, you would die. Now, if you had a parachute or a paraglider or you had a wingsuit, perhaps you wouldn't. So you have to quantify or qualify what your truth is. And but you do know that if you were to jump unassisted, you would die. Now, knowing that that is what truth truly is, it should be easy to ascertain. Now, that when it comes to the truth of something that happened, if somebody wasn't there to see it or document it, that's when things get a little interesting and nebulous. But I have always said, I've said on this show, as a matter of fact, one of my favorite moments in 2023, whether you love him or hate him, I'm a big fan, The Critical Drinker, who, by the way, is himself a novelist, so he is himself a storyteller. He writes books, and I appreciate his take on stories. Now, you might not agree with him all the time. Whether I agree with him, I don't agree with everything he says, but I enjoy his commentary. And remember, the critical drinker is a character that he's playing. Always important to remember. So I come to you as Robert Meyer Burnett. I don't come to you as somebody playing a character online, which is fun. You know, it's funny. People thought that I was at war with Doomcock for a while. What people don't understand is I consider Doomcock to be a character. So when I talk about Doomcock or to Doomcock, I'm talking to the character of Doomcock that lives in the center of the earth, who has a little Cthulhu in a cage. I'm not talking to the person that creates the character of Doomcock. I'm literally talking to Doomcock, a character, a fictional character. That's what's so fun about it. When you watch Doomcock, he's a character. And I don't think people quite make that distinction. Like, I'm not mad at a real guy who's playing Doomcock, nor do I think that everything Doomcock says is the gospel. It's what the character of Doomcock says. I know that might seem strange to people, but that's how I look at it. And I enjoy the character of Doomcock. I enjoy him. I like the mask. I like the pets. I like the character. I like the jacket, as people might know. I wore a similar jacket on the Schmodown. I appreciate the whole presentation. But you know what? Doomcock is an authentic character. And that's why I like him. That's why I like the character. So let me go back to 2023. So one of my proudest moments was when, despite the news about Russell Brand, I'm a huge fan of Get Him to the Greek and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I Get Him to the Greek, though, I don't know why. It just appeals to me. I love that movie. I've seen it 50 times. I just love that film. I hope that Russell Brand is exonerated if he did something improper. I mean, he himself has admitted that he did all kinds of terrible things. But when I say this, when the Critical Drinker was on Russell Brand's show and brought up the fact, he called me a very smart man. And he used my name. He said, Robert Meyer Burnett, a very smart man, has always said that authenticity is the currency of the 21st century. And I believe that. And look, we don't know the half of it yet. Wait till one of my, I'm very fond of William Friedkin's film To Live and Die in L.A. And there's a documentary on that entitled Counterfeit World. And Bud Smith, the editor of To Live and Die in L.A., put it together. And I always love that term. We live in and it's going to get 1,000 times more than it is right now. Wait a year from now, 5 years, or 10 years from now. We're going to live in a counterfeit world. Very few things. I mean, it's going to get to the point where I honestly believe that in the future, the human mind is going to have to decide. We are going to have to decide both individually and as a society. Do we want to watch material that is completely generated by AI? Or are we going to, like, for instance, if you love music, if anybody's a real music lover, like I love music, there's nothing better than going to watch people who are very talented play music. Whether you're going to see a big show, a big arena show, like Coldplay was a great arena show. U2, when they did the Joshua Tree Tour again a couple years back, was that 2017? It was great watching The Edge play Bullet the Blue Sky. I mean, it was amazing. Or if you go into a small jazz club, you want to go see Jeff Goldblum, I'll love go to New Orleans, go see a jazz trio in some smoky restaurant, or maybe not smoky because you can't smoke anymore. But there's nothing better than watching great musicians really know how to play an instrument. I love seeing that, and that is something that is authentic. You cannot duplicate that. You cannot watching the changes, watching how the syncopation can change up how players are playing their horns. I mean, there's nothing better. And maybe our AI world will make humanity really begin to appreciate the authenticity of human beings that have true talent. And, I read an article that said like 75% of British youth are using generative AI. The scary thing about that is you can use generative AI to write anything for you, but that doesn't mean you know what it is. I honestly believe that authenticity, both personal, professional, public, private, is going to be one of the sexiest things somebody can be. And that authenticity, because you can't hide. When you're standing in front of somebody, they know. And I think that one of the byproducts of our AI future is that human beings, I hope, because I'm an optimist, I'm a futurist, I'm an optimist, I'm a civilizationist, and I'm a universalist. And I honestly believe that what we want is to be able to stand in front of another person and have an authentic experience. Now, I've been saying this for a while, so you can imagine how overjoyed I was to read that Merriam-Webster, that's right, the dictionary, people. Merriam-Webster, actually, that's not the article that I meant to call up. I meant to call up this one. What's Merriam-Webster's word of the year for 2023? Now, I'm not saying I'm a prophet. I'm not. But your boy here has been talking about authenticity for the better part of a year. And quoted on that Russell Brand show by the drinker, called me a very smart man. Thank you, Critical Drinker. What's Merriam-Webster's word of the year for 2023? Hint, be true to yourself. Now, I'm not saying that Merriam-Webster, actually it's a company, it's not like a person, like Led Zeppelin. It's not a person. Led Zeppelin's the name of a band. Merriam-Webster. Merriam-Webster is a dictionary. You know, it's called that now. Just want to be clear. So let me read this article from the Associated Press for you. This was published on November 27th, and it's by Leanne Attali. In an age of deep fakes and post-truth, as artificial intelligence rose and Elon Musk turned Twitter into X, or as I like to say, a cesspool of meanness, the Merriam-Webster word of the year for 2023 is authentic. Authentic cuisine, authentic voice, authentic self. Authenticity is artifice. Lookups for the word are routinely heavy on the dictionary company's site, but were boosted to new heights throughout the year. Editor-at-large Peter Stokowski, I think it's Stokowski, told the Associated Press, like, Mr. Stokowski, but it seems like it's different. Mr. Stokowski! You know what? Speaking of that, fucking Disney. Where's Fantasia on 4K? Certainly not part of your 100th anniversary, was it? No. What a disappointment. And you want to know why Disney's stock price is down for the year. It's Stokowski. I think maybe it is Stokowski, told the Associated Press in an exclusive interview. We see in 2023 a kind of crisis of authenticity. In 2023, I got news for you, kids. This crisis of authenticity is going to continue for the next 100 years, if not longer. He said, ahead of Monday's announcement of this year's word, what we realize is that when we question authenticity, we value it even more. Amen. Stokowski and his team don't delve into the reasons people head for dictionaries and websites in search of specific words. How about because they want to know what they mean? Rather, they chase the data on lookup spikes and world events that correlate. This time around, there was no particularly huge boost at any given time, but a constancy to the increased interest in authentic, probably because everybody watches Robservations, and if they don't, they should. This was the year of artificial intelligence for sure, but also a moment when ChatGPT maker OpenAI suffered a leadership crisis. Taylor Swift and Prince Harry chased after authenticity in their words and deeds. Musk himself at February's World Government Summit in Dubai urged the heads of companies, politicians, ministers, and other leaders to speak authentically on social media by running their own accounts. Can we trust whether a student wrote this paper? No, you can't, because they're not writing them. They're not. Can we trust whether a politician made this statement? We don't always trust what we see anymore, nor should you. Half of what you see isn't real, and the other half is a bunch of bullshit that people are using ChatGPT to write. I'm being hyperbolic, but kind of. We sometimes don't believe our own eyes or our own ears. We're now recognizing that authenticity is a performance itself. Merriam-Webster's entry for authentic is busy with meaning. There's not false or imitation, real, actual, as in an authentic Cockney accent. There's true to one's own personality, spirit, or character. There's worthy of acceptance or belief as conforming to or based on fact. There's made or done the same way as an original. And perhaps the most telling, there's conforming to an original so as to reproduce essential features. Authentic follows 2022's choice of gaslighting. And 2023 marks Merriam-Webster's 20th anniversary choosing a top word. Gaslighting followed by authenticity. How perfect that is. And God bless Merriam-Webster for doing it. The company's data crunchers filter out evergreen words like love and affect versus affect and effect that are always high in lookups among the 500,000 words it defines online. This year, the wordsmiths also filtered out numerous 5-letter words because Wordle and Quordle players clearly use the company's site in search of them as they play the daily games, Stokowski said. Stokowski, a lexicologist, and his colleagues have a bevy of runners-up for Word of the Year that also attracted unusual traffic. They include X, lookup spiked in July after Musk's rebranding of Twitter. EGOT, there was a boost in February when Viola Davis achieved that rare quadruple award status with a Grammy. And Elemental, the title of a new Pixar film that had lookups jumping in June. First of all, the fact that people have to look up Elemental is part of our problem, let me just say. Rounding out the company's top words in 2023 in no particular order, Riz. It's slang for romantic appeal or charm, and seemingly short for charisma. He's got a lot of riz. Merriam-Webster added the word to its online dictionary in September, and it's been among the top lookups since, Sikowski said. Kibbutz, or kibbutz. There was a massive spike in lookups for a communal farm or settlement in Israel. Kibbutz, how can you not know what a kibbutz is? My cousins lived on a kibbutz. But amazing. There was a massive spike in lookups for a communal farm or settlement in Israel after Hamas militants attacked several near the Gaza Strip. Hamas militants. Well, Merriam-Webster, or pardon me, AP News, you mean Hamas terrorists? Militants and terrorists. If you're going to use a word, use the correct word. They're not militants. They were terrorists. But that's okay. I understand. The first kibbutz was founded circa 1909 in what is today Israel. Really? 1909, huh? The first kibbutz was founded in 1909. Good to know. Implode. The June 18th implosion of the Titan submersible on a commercial expedition to explore the Titanic wreckage sent lookups soaring for this word, meaning to burst inward. It was a story that completely occupied the world, Stokowski said. Dead name. Interest was high in what Merriam-Webster defines as the name that a transgender person was given at birth and no longer uses upon transitioning. Lookups followed an onslaught of legislation aimed at curtailing LGBTQ rights around the country. I like that term. I like the term dead name. I like what it connotates. I think it's a good word. I like what it means. However, I wonder what's going to happen with all of my physical media that has people. I mean, I can't wrap my head around when I see someone who's transitioned their dead name in the main credits of a movie. I'm going to get myself in trouble talking about actors like that one day. Doppelganger. Doppelganger has been a word that I've loved since I was a kid. You might ask me, why do I even know what the word doppelganger is? Well, like so many things that I've learned from the movies. Yes, that's right, the movies. There was a science fiction movie, the only science fiction movie made by Jerry Anderson. Well, I shouldn't say that because there's Thunderbird. Thunderbirds are going Thunderbird 6. But the only live-action feature film that Jerry Anderson, who created the Thunderbirds in Space 1999 and UFO and Captain Scarlet and Joe 90 and Supercar and all your favorite Super Marionation shows, he made a movie that was released in America, and probably, because we're too stupid, people, you couldn't release a movie called Doppelganger in the United States. So they retitled the film to Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. Doppelganger is a much cooler title. By the way, there's another movie that was made in the late 80s called Doppelganger as well. But it's a very different film. Doppelganger, Stokowski calls this a word lover's word. It's true. Doppelganger is a word lover's word. Merriam-Webster defines it as a double or alter ego or ghostly counterpart. It derives from German folklore. Interest in the word surrounded Naomi Klein's latest book, Doppelganger, A Trip into the Mirror World, released this year. She uses her own experience of often being confused with feminist author and conspiracy theorist Naomi Wolf, instead of Naomi Klein, as a springboard into a broader narrative on the crazy times we're all living in. Coronation. King Charles III had one on May 6th, sending lookups for the word soaring 15,681% over the year before. It's really weird that people have to look up the word coronation. Yeesh. Deepfake. The dictionary company's definition is an image or recording that has been convincingly altered and manipulated to misrepresent someone as doing or saying something that was not actually done or said. Interest spiked after Musk lawyers in a Tesla lawsuit said he is often the subject of deepfake videos, and again after the likeness of Ryan Reynolds appeared in a fake AI-generated Tesla ad. Because of deepfakes, we're going to be living in the next word, which is dystopian. Dystopian climate chaos brought an interest in the word. So did books, movies, and TV fare intended to entertain. It's unusual for me to see a word that is used in both contexts, Stokowski said. Hey man, get to know the word dystopian, learn it, love it. All of us science fiction movie fans have known it for a long time, or science fiction novel fans. It's actually a genre, a subgenre of science fiction that's very popular. Covenant. Lookups for the word meaning a usually formal, solemn, and binding agreement swelled on March 27th after a deadly mass shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. The shooter was a former student killed by police after killing 3 students and 3 adults. Interest also spiked with this year's release of Guy Ritchie's The Covenant and Abraham Verese's long-awaited new novel, The Covenant of Water, which Oprah Winfrey chose as a book club pick. Indict. Former President Donald Trump has been indicted on felony charges in 4 criminal cases in New York, Florida, Georgia, and Washington, D.C., in addition to fighting a lawsuit that threatens his real estate empire. So there you go. Apparently, I'm on the cutting edge. I'm a prophet. I knew it, man. Authenticity. You know what? Imagination connoisseurs, audiences that watch this channel, I know you're all authentic. You wouldn't be anything else. Otherwise, why would you be watching this channel? Damn it. So let me jump into another article because I want to delve in further. Let's go in to authenticity. I have another article for you, as you know I would. Because you know I love my articles. You know I found, I always scour the internet. And some people get triggered if I get something from Medium or Quillette or something. People get triggered. You shouldn't do that. Those are this kind of a site or that kind of a site. How dare you? I would be like, how dare you not? Why aren't you all reading stuff from all sides of the aisles? Actually, there's only 2 sides of an aisle, but you know what I mean? Read stuff from the balcony. Read stuff from the basement. Read everything. Why not? Open your mind, Quaid. That's what Quado said in Total Recall, and he was right, damn it. So this next, I'm a little loopy, man. A little cold medicine, I think. This was a perspective article, Psychology, 21st of January, 2021. And I found this on Frontier. My mouth. The essence of authenticity. And this is like a study, and I'm going to get all these names wrong. Olaf Damon, Katja Fredericks, Sabine Lebinsky, and Kirsten Leisenfeld. People I want to party with, just so you know. Introduction. And I won't read this whole thing because it's long, but I did want to share it with you. In a recent review article, Lehman and colleagues write about authenticity in the context of management studies. Their point of departure is their perception that in the term authenticity, it refers to what's real, genuine, or true. In contrast to this, Lehman and co-authors outline their perspectives of authenticity as dependent on the referent of the term. In keeping with other recent publications motivated by a lack of definitional clarity, they outline different meanings the term can have in different contexts and ask what we are talking about when we talk about something or someone authentic. Obviously, this semantic heterogeneity, is that right? Genity has its disadvantages, of which Lehman emphasized too. The difficulty it brings for scholarly discourse and the possibility of missing the big picture. In order to overcome these hurdles, the authors propose a conceptual framework that rests on 3 different meanings of authenticity. Authenticity as consistency, as conformity, and as connection. By the way, I love that, and I agree with that. In brief, authenticity as consistency is the congruous relationship between an entity's external characteristics and its internal values. Authenticity as conformity is a congruous relationship between an entity and its social norms. Authenticity as connection is the congruence between an entity and a person, place, or time as claimed. We deliberately use the terms congruence and congruous in all three definitions because we propose in this paper that congruence is the essence of authenticity. In general, we use these terms in keeping with Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition for congruous, being in agreement, harmony, or correspondence. We think that all three of Lehman and co-workers' interpretations of authenticity encompass some form of congruence, a particular congruous relationship between an entity and characteristics of itself, between an entity and its social context, and between an entity and another one, respectively. We think of authenticity not as a static concept, but as a developmental process, as a subject to change. Consequently, we suggest that besides the above three C's, there's a fourth C, a fourth meaning of authenticity as continuity. The continuity perspective captures the developmental character of authenticity, the ever-changing relationships between an individual and himself, herself, others, and the social norms his or her life is embedded in. These relationships are different across the lifespan. They are different for the same person as a child, adolescent, or adult. Hence, authenticity as continuity describes the congruous relationship between an entity and features of development, and therefore captures the evolving nature of authenticity. Going beyond the static view of authenticity allows for inherent changes in authenticity over time and places a greater emphasis on becoming authentic instead of being authentic. I think we should be both. Thus, authenticity as continuity combines a dynamic connection between static and process characteristics of authenticity, which in turn makes authenticity more of an ongoing project instead of something that can be achieved. I also agree with that. You have to work at being authentic all the time. Based on these considerations, we define authenticity as the process of being in a congruous relationship with self, others, and relevant social norms. Thus defined, we restrict our discussion to authenticity as a concept that can be applied at both the level of the individual as well as the level of the collective, the community and population. And in this paper, we first briefly review Lehman's view of authenticity as consistency, conformity, and connection. Then we propose the addition of a fourth C, continuity. Next, we explore and propose congruence as the essence of authenticity. And finally, we discuss advantages and disadvantages of our proposal. Now, I'm not going to read this. I just want to read you that opening because I thought it summed it up well. And I'm going to put this in the chat if you want to read the rest of it. And I highly recommend doing so because it's fascinating. Now, before we get to the Disney portion of this show, I just want to point out that lately I have been accused of somehow changing that my very vocal support of Israel during this conflict with Hamas that has been going on has somehow made people have a different view of me. And they've accused me of changing my political affiliation, which I've thought is odd. And then I realized why they think that. This is an entertainment news channel. I opine about the topics that are applicable to imagination connoisseurs. I don't usually delve into politics unless, look, someone's trying to ban Roald Dahl's books or rewrite them, or Ian Fleming's books to make them more palatable for modern audiences. Look, some people might say, like, I don't come out always and use the verbiage. I think rewriting books to coddle audiences for the modern age is fucking dumb. I think it says that we're stupid. I think that an educated population understands that human civilization, hopefully, is constantly progressing and that the way the world was 50 years ago or 100 years ago or 250 years ago or 1,000 years ago is different than the way the world is today. And to think that we have to coddle people and change words to make them feel better is just the stupidest shit ever. Now, I might not come out and say that. I'll do a long observations, but I do think it's fucking dumb. And I think it's really doing a disservice to a whole population that runs around saying they're triggered by words. Wait until what happens when the asteroid hits, if it does. What happens if Greenland or Deep Impact or Armageddon occur and somebody has to deal with the fact that we're going to get hit by an extinction level asteroid event? How are we going to survive? You know what's going to go out the window? All of these concerns, like, oh, we shouldn't have had this language in this book because people are triggered. No, we should be teaching all of history and explain why we're getting better and why we shouldn't speak this way anymore. But we shouldn't change things in the past to make them more palatable for the present. Because let me tell you something. Everything that's going on now in the present isn't good either. In 50 years, they're going to look back, talk about authenticity. If you can't tell me who you are, if I walk up to you and if I ask you, tell me about what you believe. Tell me about what you think. Tell me about who you are. And you can't tell me? We're going to have a problem. And I think nowadays, more so than I've ever seen in my lifetime, people are confused about themselves. And I think that's tragic, scary, something that I'd like to understand more of. And where did all of this come from? Because I think more than ever, especially moving forward in the 21st century, knowing our authentic selves, knowing who and what we are, no matter what that is, no matter who that is, no matter whatever your authentic self is, I don't care. I will accept it. As long as I believe you're showing me your authentic self, I'll drink it up like this mason jar of water. I wish there was something else in it, but I probably couldn't taste it anyway. Show me who you are. Not only that, show yourself. I don't think people know who they are anymore. I really don't. And I really appreciate, even if somebody says something I completely disagree with, that I might find offensive, if they say it and I believe they either mean it or believe it, respect. Respect. Because I am tired of listening to opinions that are half-baked or thoughts that are half-thought and people spewing them as their own opinion. I'm like, you don't really believe that. You don't even know what you believe. That, to me, is the biggest problem. And to hear in that little article that I put in the live chat, or did I not? Maybe did I forget to do it? Let me make sure I did it. If I did it already, I forgot. But there it is. There's that article. Check it out. I want someone to be their authentic self. That's why if somebody says something truly offensive, and I know it's coming from their heart, I'm not going to condemn them for it. I'm going to try and understand why they think about it. And if I want to respond in kind to provide the other side of that equation, I'll do so. But I want to know that what's coming from a person is real and genuine. And I think you should all too. Because you know what? No one can fake being in a jazz trio. A great jazz trio is what you want when you walk into if you go to Paris, and I highly recommend it because it's a great city, and you go into a jazz club and you could sit right up there, right up front and watch a jazz group, jazz trio, or maybe even just a guy on the piano or a quartet or whatever. There's nothing better. It's authentic. It's happening right in front of you. And we, I think, are going to crave that. And we're going to need that. And we need authenticity. And you know what? To be your authentic self is hard. Decide who and what you are. That doesn't mean you're not an ongoing project. Because we all are. Every single day I'm alive, I realize, I've never felt this way before. I've never been this way before. I've never been this old before. I've never known as many things as I know today because I knew more than I knew yesterday. You know, I now know what it's like to have COVID 3 different times. I can compare and contrast. I know what it's like to have 11 dogs in my house. It's crazy. let me tell you. But it's an ongoing process. But to be your authentic self, I'm telling you, there's going to be nothing more precious going forward in the 21st century than having people around you that are authentic, that you can rely on to tell you who they are, and more importantly, they'll tell you what they think about you, good or bad. To have that authenticity, you can't beat it. And it's going to be precious, I think. I could be wrong, but I think it's true. Now, something totally different, now that I've got that out of the way. First of all, let's delve into some things that you guys are saying. There was a tip. I'm going to delve into a tip that I missed because I think they left the tip on Sunday for Let's Get Physical Media. But I didn't do Let's Get Physical Media because I felt terrible. So let me go down to Milwaukee Jimmy. Sent in a $20 tip. By the way, the tip link is down below in the description. Milwaukee Jimmy said, "The smartest people never stop learning. You're a smarty, and my dog's name is Marty. Everyone just smile. It makes a huge difference in daily life." I kid you not, that's what Milwaukee Jimmy sent in. Well, Milwaukee Jimmy, much appreciated, and thank you for that delightful thought. And I agree with you. You never stop learning. Never. Why would you want to? Narf sends in a tip and says, "Have you seen the South Park Panderverse special? It was so damn funny. I laughed so hard on the Cartman Kathleen Kennedy alter ego character's line, 'Put a chick in it and make it gay.' It was so on point. No critics gave any review on it, but it's so good. You know why? Because they're inauthentic. I love that special. Here's the funny thing about Trey Parker and Matt Stone. They have been their authentic selves making South Park for, more than 20 years now? 25 years? That's authenticity. And that Panderverse special was great. And the reason people won't review it, because they're inauthentic. You know, I've talked about fraudulent creation, because I think a lot of creation now is fraudulent. You know, all of our, which I'm going to get into later on the show. But that Panderverse special, you might hate it, but it was brave and it was authentic, and it's supposed to make you think. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I just don't understand. Do you think Trey Parker and Matt Stone are not empathetic and they're not aware of people's plights and what goes on? Of course they are. But they're also very much in touch with the absurdity of daily life and how in our social media world, daily life's absurdity has been racked up, as Spinal Tap would say. This goes to 11. I mean, my God, they're making a Spinal Tap sequel. But you go, Rob Reiner. But Martin DeBurgi, I should say. But that's authentic. That Panderverse special was beyond hilarious. And I'm sure people were offended, but my God, it was so spot on. So spot on. Played Out says, "Rob, do you think these $200 million movie budgets are a result of studios inflating costs to avoid paying creatives profit-related due wages?" No, not at all. You have to understand that a budget for a motion picture is completely, I mean, every single penny is scrutinized on a daily basis by the studios. There's a studio accountant. When you're making a movie, when you're actually making a film, they know where every penny goes nowadays. That wasn't always the case. And it's not always the case in independent cinema either. But a studio movie, oh yeah. They have to account for every penny. No one is trying to, because you have to understand, the movie budgets are carefully looked over. It's the return on the film itself. By the way, this just never gets old. I love you guys. So stupid, but I can't get enough of it. But yeah, you have to understand, when a movie is being made, the purse strings, if a penny drops on the floor, they know where it is. I guarantee you. And there's many, many checks and balances. So those days of powerful producers being able to maybe sock some money away for, remodel on your Frank Lloyd Wright house, those days are over. And they should be. But it's the return on the investment. That's where they play. That's where they play shenanigans. And that's a whole other show. But they are indeed they keep a very close watch over the money spent on making a movie. BK Dan says, as for the Empire State, I'd base jump that. I'd watch you base jump that. That would be pretty good. B Depp sends in a super chat and says, I missed Let's Get Physical Media this weekend, but I'm glad you're getting better. I'm getting better. I had a shitty holiday. I had to put my 7-year-old Labrador Zoe down Friday due to a kidney disease. Oh, I'm really sorry. I love Labradors. I love labs. I'm really sorry to hear that. That would be really hard. I'm sorry to hear that. But we will bring it back next week. We'll bring back Let's Get Physical Media next week. And I am sorry to hear that. Anonymous sends in a tip. Actually, one of two, so 2 tips. With Quicksilver being instead John Boner, and Xavier sort of killed off in Multiverse of Madness, is the Marvel's post-credit scene even real? Or another joke? Either way, they're taking way too long in bringing in the X-Men. It seems they're playing desperate right now. Maybe it's time for the MCU to bring back Tony Stark and Cap, because who is the leader of Phases 4 and 5? The Young Avengers, the Flurkins, the singing, dancing water planet? Nobody knows. You're right. Well, I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But, yeah, I think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe's property. I'm sorry, I'm still a little loopy. The Marvel Cinematic Universe went from being authentic to being inauthentic. I mean, it knew exactly what it was doing, and then it went off the rails. And that's its problem, I think. But I'm going to get into that with my next article. BK Dan says, Rob, I feel you about changing old books. Changing verbiage because of the verbiage is now as opposed to 1850s Huck Finn. Changing it because it's a bad word is wrong, in my opinion. BK Dan, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, Mark Twain, when he was writing, the N-word, for instance, was in common use every single day. Now, he used it when he was writing Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. It's in there. And to change it because it's known to be a racial slur, a horrible racial slur, I can't even utter it. I mean, personally, I find it so hard to even say that word. I mean, I will admit, when I do that old adage, or you've seen videos where people are trying to, what was I just watching? They're in the car, they're going out, they're going somewhere, and it was in the new Bill Burr movie. You know, when they talked about the N-word and rap music, when you're singing rap music, do say it, like when you're alone. I thought that was a great bit. And it's true. You know, I mean, it's a very interesting thing. But you can't change it. The point is not to remove the language. The point is that when kids are reading that book, not to take the offensive language out, but to give them context to understand why the word is there. What you're doing by scrubbing this information out is you are depriving kids of real information. This is what should be taught. This idea that we have to make everything palatable for children, when the fuck did that become some reality? This is the dumbest shit ever. The way we infantilize children's gross. It's disgusting. And it's led to, honestly, a generation of monsters. Scary stuff. And that's what we should do. We should explain to kids, like, here, we're going to ask you to read Mark Twain, one of the great American writers of all time. Just like You know, Frederick Douglass is one of the great American statesmen and orators. And everybody should read, hey, when you read his 4th of July speech, might it be hard to swallow? Yes, but you should read it. You should read it. And that's what we should be teaching. We shouldn't be scrubbing the bad things from history, scrubbing the bad words. No, we should be teaching history. When did we stop teaching history? Don't know. Or as the critical drinker would say, don't know. I don't know why. It's scary and horrific. By the way, I'm still thinking about Zoe the Labradoodle, or the Labrador. Only 7 years old, B-Dep. I'm really, really sorry to hear that. So I just, that really, not so good. Let's see what else. You guys keep firing stuff in. Let's see. Doctor, this I always crack up. Dr. Fauci's prison butt says, Rob, why does the price of CGI films keep going up when every other technology that's 30 years old has come down in price? Feels like pigs in a trough. No, you know what? I'll tell you what the real problem is. They don't schedule movies properly. There's too many visual effects and not enough people to do them. It's true. They want them done so fast that they're paying massive amounts of overtime. And I'll tell you something else. It's really hard to do good visual effects. And now the amount of effects in a movie went from hundreds to thousands. And if you think about an MCU film, so much of those movies now are shot on green screens. Not even volumes, but green screens, that every single shot becomes an effect shot. And moving and tracking, even though the technology's gotten great, when you have 1,000 people working on effects that all need to get paid, that's why the budgets of movies are going up so much. Binary Sunset Media says, in a world always changing, authenticity is our anchor, keeping us real and reminding us we're all in this together. I couldn't agree more. And unfortunately, though, we all have to agree what truth is. Jumping off the Empire State Building is a good place to start. There's some truth there. We can all agree. You jump off the Empire State Building unassisted, there's only one result. And the thing is, truth is true. There's a lot of truth around us, but people are willfully denying truth. And when you do that, it's like, okay, we're not going to discuss it. Like, hey, if you're in biology and you're discussing the mating habits of pick your animal on any level, I mean, you know, there's parthenogenesis, there's all kinds of different kinds of biological reproduction, but there's only one place now in the world where you suddenly have to check what words you're using, which is odd. And I'm not making a judgment on it. I'm just saying, if you're trying to deal with truth and you can't agree on language, you have a problem. And we're kind of that way now. And if we can't decide what truth is, how can you be authentic? Because if you can't be truthful to yourself, how are you going to be truthful to anybody else? I don't know. But we're allowing untruth to surround us. We must demand authenticity. I'm just saying. Mr. Erickson says, hello, Rob. Whenever I watch your streams, I'm entranced by the shelves behind you. Have you ever shot a shelf porn tour video of your collections? I have never done that. I made one hot toy video like 5 years ago that you can find on my channel, like R&B's Hot Toys collection. That was in my office. It was in an office I had in a studio. But one day I'm going to do that. Danny Dank says, are you ever going to update the Spotify feed? Yes. You can. I have not updated in a while. I'm going to update it. I'm going to just put everything up there. I am sorry. I am sorry about that. I will put the audio version of the show up there. BK Dan says, Rob, in my opinion, we stopped teaching literally when Orwell's 1984 got banned. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable to me that what's really interesting is like, I've always wondered why people want to ban material. Like Like ban sexually explicit material, for instance. I've always believed that we should treat all material the same way there's a rating system on movies. Look, we know that we as human beings should not be teaching. I mean, I'll tell you this from my own personal life. The first time I ever saw hardcore pornography was the summer I turned 13 in May, and that summer I saw hardcore pornography for the first time. I saw Devil Miss Jones, Behind the Green Door, and Deep Throat. And I'll tell you, they were traumatic experiences. Really traumatizing. I felt icky. I was not equipped. I understood what sex was. Girls turned me on. I got aroused and all that, but I'd never seen pornography. I'll tell you, I was too young to see it. I wish I had a little bit more of that somebody... Look, I loved reading about explicit sex in horror novels, but not in... I hadn't seen it. And I wasn't prepared. And it to be honest, it wigged me out for a while. That said, I have a letter I want to read. I didn't know you were going to ask this question, but I have a letter I want to read from Freddie. Freddie writes in, Rob, spiraling and gooning. I'd never heard the word gooning before. I thought that was a hockey term or something, but here's what Freddie has to say. Rob, every time we tune in, you're mentioning tugging it to Emmanuel. You mentioned Bond girls out of nowhere. You mentioned Jenna Jameson. First of all, have I ever mentioned Jenna Jameson? Maybe I have. It's been almost 1,000 shows. But the other day you spoke about hot teenage Japanese girl being in some movie. Yeah. You need to confront your porn obsession. Please stop. Our movies are about characters, not about your needs to be sated. More porn than ever. You should not need thoughts in your entertainment. Class, beauty, elegance is all defining, not your insta-porn-looking thoughts. Please go to therapy. I know you goon all day. You need to address this. Okay, goon all day, is that a euphemism for masturbation? Or watching porn, or both? Like when you watch porn and masturbate, are you gooning? I don't know what that means. But, Freddie, I assure you, I am too goddamn busy to jerk my gherkin all day long. If I had the time, I would be happy. Because, at my age, I can still muster 3 or 4 in a session. Pretty good, right? I'd say okay. And if I had more time, I would like nothing better. But you have to understand something. I am not always tugging it to Emmanuel. When I'm talking about eroticism, or if I'm speaking about, you talk about Japanese, like the pinky violence films, those are almost a genre. If you look up Japan, pinky violence, and certain actresses, which I have collections of those films, rightly or wrongly, I joke that as I get older, perhaps I shouldn't enjoy them as much as I do. But that doesn't mean I'm yanking it to porn all day. I'm too goddamn busy. I'm producing an audio drama. I'm finishing White Devils, which is a motion picture. I'm doing crisis medicine. I'm doing designing Hollywood. I'm doing all kinds of things. I assure you, I do not have a porn addiction. Again, I'd love to have a lot more time to watch porn, but I live with a girlfriend. And I'd rather, make porn than watch porn, if you know what I'm saying, and I think you do. But I appreciate you writing in and looking out for my well-being. I still don't know what gooning all day means. Somebody, maybe in the live chat, what does that mean? Scorpio says, keep choking that chicken, Rob. Ignore the haters. Look, man, I got to tell you, orgasms are the key to long life. Dan Candy says, Rob, we need a new show, Goonservations. Oh, my God. Let me tell you about Marvel. Oh, my God, I did. Oh, that's how it would go. Something like that. It'd just be one big blue ball session. No, I'm just kidding. But is that what gooning means? I honestly don't know. I mean, that's a term that I literally don't know that term. See, there's things even I don't know, which is wild. I mean, I honestly don't know what that means. Joe the Lawyer sends in a super chat and says, Rob, AI equals inauthentic, but it's also a tool some say will allow the little guys to compete with the studios on some a level A new AI-fueled indie cinema age. Likely, not, good, bad. Oh, Joe, absolutely. Look, um, AI is going to allow the everyman, make no mistake, AI is going to allow you imagination connoisseurs, you members of the Post-Geek Singularity community, you will be able to make your own feature film. You will. You learn how to wield those prompts correctly. People are going to be making feature films. Are they going to be good? Who's to say? There's going to be some that are going to be good. But here's what I think is going to be really, really, really interesting. Forget us, but in 10 years, or the people born 10 years from now moving forward, assuming that we clean up our environment, we don't get struck by an asteroid, we don't destroy ourselves in nuclear fire, assuming that doesn't happen and humanity moves out into the stars and we grow and evolve into sandworms or whatever by consuming too much of the spice melange, assuming that we're going to stick around, there's going to be a generation born in a post-AI era where they're not going to make a distinction between movies that were created, call them analog movies. I mean, what's going to be the equivalent? I'm sure someone's going to come up with a word when AI is the norm and people are just watching AI movies. I mean, instead of mixtapes, you'll be able to make your significant other, as you're courting them, a whole movie starring them and you. You'll be able to make your fantasy film about your girlfriend, boyfriend, or whomever your friend is, however they identify across the 28 known galaxies. I'm not one to judge, as long as they're authentic, as long as you can explain that to me. If you're gonna make, people are gonna make you're gonna make a movie with you and your significant. And I don't mean, Freddie, a gooning movie. Although, why would you want to make an AI movie when you can make your own movie with your significant other? I'll never understand that, but kind of defeats the purpose. But still, that's going to happen. It's going to happen, and it's going to become the norm. The question is, are we going to accept it? Or are we going to want it? And that's the real question. And I think the answer is yes. I mean, you can't put, the one thing we've learned, the one truism of humanity is the technology cannot be put back in the bottle. You know, unless we have a Butlerian jihad. That's another Dune reference for you. What happened in the Dune universe after the Butlerian jihad, they basically destroyed all computers. You could no longer make technology in the shape of a human mind, which is what computers were considered. And Frank Herbert was talking about this stuff back in the 60s. But it's going to happen. You know, our AI future, and the real question is going to be, like, the appeal of movies to me, and this is going to seem a strange, kind of an esoteric idea, but because movies are made by people, and you're watching real people in them, I believe that's part of the appeal itself. Eventually, that'll go away. The same way that I can get caught up in a video game, and I know I'm watching a digital representation of a human being. But it's a game, and the point is the gameplay, even though it's able to create emotion and pathos in me. We already have a generation of people that have grown up accepting that. But I don't want to watch a drama. I would not get as involved with, say, the MCU unless Chris Evans was playing Steve Rogers and Robert Downey Jr. was playing Tony Stark. But that's because I grew up in a world where I had motion pictures. What happens when you grow up in a world that doesn't, or that's moved on? You can't expect people to look back, and because that is not how progress works. Even going to the movies, that new Apple device will make it so you can probably, somebody will figure out, like, whatever your favorite movie theater is, you'll probably be able to get a recreation of that movie theater, and that glass, when you put it on, it'll put you in your favorite seat. And you're like, if I could get, and by the way, someone's going to do this, and I'm going to beg them to do it. The Empire Strikes Back played at the UA 150 Cinema on the corner of 6th and Blanchard in downtown Seattle longer than anywhere else in the world. And I want somebody to make a digital recreation of that theater. Get the layout, get the blueprints,
And I always sat in the 8th seat from the left side on the front row of the balcony. It wasn't really a balcony. It was split into upper lower. And the balcony had the best line of sight to the screen. And that's why I saw Empire Strikes Back 26 times. I want somebody to recreate that digitally because I would watch every fucking movie in my collection. If I could plug my movie, if I could get that digital recreation so I can literally sit down, you sit in a chair and you look around and it's that seat. And I could watch all of my movie collection. Somehow, please make that glass, make it compatible, HDMI port, so I can put in my movies and watch them on that screen. I'd fucking do that. So AI is going to bring us an age of wonder, kind of like in Conan. So there you go. Let's see. Culture Wars Diplomacy says, watch Rock, Paper, Scissors, the anime. Those are artists that used AI as a tool in the toolbox. Yeah, no, I think they're going to be using all that. You know, it's happening. And like with anime, why not use AI? Why not? Scott Bartholomew says the creator was a thought-provoking movie. I really enjoyed it. I was a little, you know what I was disappointed by? I thought that they didn't really delve into the differences. Like, I'm like, why wouldn't you want an AI world? I know the Americans thought that they were nuked by the AIs, but then they find out that they weren't nuked by the AI. So knowing that, why are they at war? Like, I would want to live in a world with those AI. I like that. But I really appreciate the movie. I thought it was really well done. I thought the script was lacking, I thought the ending, for whatever reason, it descended into this action ending that I didn't really need. But I enjoyed it. Anonymous says, in Goonservations, can I put a chick in it and make it gay? Yeah, people are going to be, I'm sure there's so many people triggered by that, but man, that South Park Pandaverse special, especially for people who are online a lot, as we all are, was amazing. Truly amazing, amazing stuff. Well, now it's time to get to the Disney portion of this. Now we know anybody who's been following Disney. Now I'll freely admit something. I don't know if you guys watch Dave Cullen, but there's been a lot of the latest brouhaha over fandom is the Doctor Who 60th anniversary special. Dave Cullen, who I really respect, he did a lot of really great work during the pandemic on the actual which he's still catching hell for. Although as more and more information comes out, it seems like Dave was on the right track the whole time. But Dave Cullen did a great video about franchises that are disappointing you. Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, Doctor Who. And he made a good point. He just said, you know what? Why sit around and argue about it? Because you're just going to get branded something. And just walk away. Just walk away, and I'll spare your lives. There's been too much killing already. Look, I'm a big Lord Humongous fan. I wouldn't have walked away if I was in Road Warrior, but I understand his sentiment. And I think, you know what? Just walk away. I mean, I honestly, I've been doing the Inglorious Trexperts. We've been recording the Inglorious Trexperts holiday. We've been doing this for like 5 years, doing the holiday specials. And we've been talking about our love of Star Trek and our nostalgia and all these different lists, top 10 lists of different aspects of Star Trek. And I've been really thinking about it. And while I'm still surrounded by a lot of Star Trek stuff, I've come to realize that this franchise that I've loved my whole life, that I have ungodly amounts of reference material on. I made a movie with William Shatner. I spent 3 years making documentaries for Star Trek, which, by the way, our documentaries were re-released this week with the Picard Legacy Collection, the big box set. So you can get our documentaries. There's many, many hours of documentaries we did. On my Instagram, I put up some clips from that set of me interviewing the entire cast of Next Gen. But I realized, other than the only Star Trek things that are being made now that bring me real joy are the XO6 action figures and the model kits of the spaceships I loved growing up, because the model kits are better than they've ever been. So I feel like that I can just focus on that. And maybe someday, if somebody makes something that I deem worthy of the franchise that's actually good, I might come back and watch it. But as of now, there's nothing about Star Trek that's enriching my life. So I was watching, Dave Cullen did 2 videos over the course of the last 24 hours. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And when it comes to things like Marvel, after I saw the Marvels, I realized I loved the MCU so much. I had so much fun with the whole Infinity Saga, and to this day, I could watch Infinity War and Endgame in one shot over and over and over and over again. But now it's over. I honestly, after the Marvels happened and they showed us Hank McCoy, I'm like, the question came up earlier. I was watching this going, okay, you actually had the actor playing Quicksilver, who played Quicksilver in X-Men First Class, in Days of Future Past, in Apocalypse. You had that actor wearing that costume with the hair in WandaVision, and you turn it into a joke. But it was that actor, you got that actor back, and you made it a joke. But the only reason you had him there was because he played Quicksilver in the Fox universe. And he was great. He's a great actor. But when you did that, it's like, okay, you've now fucked with me. So that was the beginning, even though I liked WandaVision. Then, when you give us Multiverse of Madness, you give us Professor X in the animated, the X-Men 97 version. You kill him, but okay, whatever. So the X-Men are now real. Now you're giving us Beast, and that universe is going to, who knows? And now we're going to get Deadpool and Wolverine. We're literally getting a movie that's in the MCU that's entirely Fox characters. I think, now the Wolverine Deadpool movie I can see is a standalone thing. But I love the X-Men. You can't really see it, but I have, I don't know, $3,000-$4,000 of omnibuses, X-Men omnibuses. Like that, this shelf alone that you can't see that's right here is that's $2,000 worth of X-Men omnibuses. It's sitting on that shelf. I love the X-Men. You know, I've been reading them the better part of my life. And this fucking with the audience bullshit about the X-Men has really annoyed me. And the end of the Marvels, I'm like, is this supposed to be cool? Like, you're folding in the X-Men universe, but you without a plan. I don't care. And the Marvels, it was so interesting because the Marvels, after it was over, literally my entire interest in the MCU, I've never felt this before. I walked out of that movie, and look, a Young Avengers movie might appeal to me. I have no problem with that. But I realized I'm done. The Marvel Cinematic Universe to me is over. There are these other movies. I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home is a gimmicky movie, but I enjoyed it. I like watching it. But it ended. That story, you got a great Spider-Man trilogy, that Peter Parker story that left him off. Anything can happen. I don't know what's going to happen to him, but I like where they left Peter Parker. Eternals. I enjoyed Eternals a lot more than a lot of people did. But that kind of, I don't have to know whatever happens again because they don't care. I'm done with that. You know, so these all of these things, Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who, and the MCU, they no longer, I have no interest in them. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. I can't. And I just don't. It's been completely, which is tough because everybody wants me to talk about this stuff. And I just don't care. I do care about watching the second season of Andor. You know, I want to see the second season of Andor. I have no interest in Discovery Season 5. I have no interest in Lower Decks. I have no interest in Section 31. People that do, good for you. I've had these franchises now. I'll go see something else. I'll go read books. I'll go catch up on movies I've never seen. Great works of classic cinema. But all of these franchise properties, they've all left me cold. And on that note, let's read this article that was in The Guardian today about Disney. Boy, I don't know if you guys read this, but wowzers. This is brutal. Brutal. So this was in The Guardian on Tuesday the 28th, which is today. And it was written by Jesse Hasinger. Hasinger? Or Hasinger. Fallen Kingdom. Why Disney had such a terrible year. A dubious brand strategy and underperforming films like Wish and the Marvels have led the once golden studio into disarray. For its 100th anniversary this year, Disney received a bucket of ice-cold water to the face. It may sound momentary, but somehow it's the gift that has been giving all year. From the box office nosedive of Marvel's Ant-Man sequel, to lower-than-expected international numbers for an expensive Little Mermaid remake, to series-low grosses on Lucasfilm's Indiana Jones sequel. This continued all the way to November, when the Marvels outright flopped. I mean, it didn't just flop. It's a huge, huge, huge flop. I mean, it went from the high dive, went flat down, and belly flopped. The Marvels outright flopped, and Disney's 100th birthday cartoon, Wish, opened to an underwhelming number. It marks the first year since 2014, pandemic era not included, that the company failed to produce a billion-dollar hit. Financially speaking, the only bright spots were Elemental and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, both of which held up following surprisingly soft opening weekends. And while Guardians scored good reviews, critics haven't been wild about this lineup as a whole. Compare this with the last pre-pandemic year, 2019, when the company had 7 different billion-dollar hits. And if they didn't all notch great reviews, more than half of critics not actively loathing The Lion King still seems like a win, especially in retrospect. So, what's gone wrong? Some have gleefully suggested Disney has gone woke, and therefore broke. But this suggests a dim understanding of either word in the rhyme scheme, as well as a high degree of audience fragility. Any parents balking at something as anodyne as Disney's supposed wokeness, which includes radical ideas such as sometimes having women and people of color starring in some movies, are going to run into problems functioning just about anywhere apart from faith-based entertainment. If anything, the company's longtime tendency to offer scraps of representation in tiny roles and trumpet them as groundbreaking firsts is alienating to so-called woke audiences and probably unnoticed by the family audience at large. A cohort of more tech-minded observers and theatrical experience hardliners would point instead to Disney+, the streaming service the company launched just before the pandemic hit. At first, the company seemed especially well-positioned for an extended theatrical shutdown, with the ultimate stay-indoors streaming toy housing a vast, though not always as vast as you might expect, archive of Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and so on, plus a bunch of new TV shows. But as the pandemic pressed on, the number of new streaming series became daunting and sometimes on an individual basis, dauntingly terrible, and the expectation that Disney-related stuff would just appear on its streaming service may have become pervasive. 3 Pixar movies in a row skipped theaters before the one that felt most like a streaming spin-off, Lightyear, was a theatrical exclusive. Black Widow debuted on premium VOD simultaneously with its theatrical run. Encanto was on Disney Plus within a month of its debut in theaters. Star Wars abruptly became a TV-only franchise and has remained so for the past 4 years without any firm shooting or release dates for new movies. Some of these decisions made sense at the time, but given the unpredictable nature of still evolving COVID-19, actually, that was the wrong emphasis, but you get it. But as others have pointed out, it may be the strength of Disney's branding that left it particularly vulnerable to a less profitable and difficult to reverse streaming migration. For the average viewer, there likely isn't a strong sense that, say, Universal and Peacock share a parent company, or possibly even that Peacock exists at all. They may wait for streaming for plenty of movies in the abstract, but there isn't widespread awareness that Jurassic World Domination, or Megan in particular, are Universal movies and therefore future Peacock attractions. In contrast, it's hard to miss that Disney movies wind up on Disney Plus, or even that Disney owns Pixar, Marvel, and Star Wars, given how often it advertises its library of characters together under one roof. Paramount, on the other hand, could muster maybe a Star Trek association, but normal people won't rattle off Mission Impossible, Transformers, and most of Eddie Murphy's movies from the 80s as pillars of that particular studio. Disney's ubiquity may have made it harder to urge its audience to pay full-price theatrical admissions. The Disney branding behemoth has implications that go beyond simple consumer decision economics, too. By the late 2010s, Disney appeared to have its brand and sub-brands neatly siloed and precisely calculated. Features from Walt Disney Animation, with lineage stretching back nearly a century, more animation from Pixar, itself a modern-day institution that Disney now owns outright, a nominally live-action superhero universe, the most popular in the world from Marvel, another beloved and established world of sci-fi and fantasy from Lucasfilm, mainly through its Star Wars brand, and a steady pipeline of live-action-ish remakes of older cartoons. In theory, its acquisition of 20th Century Fox would supplement these mega-releases with a few, well, normal movies, although in practice mostly horror stuff and avatars. What happens, though, when the vast majority of a studio's releases feel like part of a bigger universe, whether narratively or spiritually? Wish, its latest cartoon, has some catchy songs, a plucky heroine, and appealing animation, but it also bends over backwards attempting to draw together a century's worth of Disney animation Easter eggs, eventually becoming a de facto prequel to the studio's whole library. Some of these references are clever, others are ham-fisted, and they all clutter up the movie's stories with self-tribute. The interesting thing about Wish's strange storyline, in which a seemingly benevolent but actually power-mad king takes possession of his subjects' greatest wishes with the vague promise of occasionally granting them, is that it flirts with self-critique. As the movie itself eventually points out in a post-credits cookie, When You Wish Upon a Star has become the Disney theme song. And it's easy enough to read King Magnifico as Disney itself, collecting the public's wishes and dreams, then mostly delivering empty, self-serving spectacle in return. In other words, commodifying them. Yet Wish is a little too muddled to fully land this idea on a thematic level. Excuse me. And its otherwise sweetly pragmatic message that wishes come true through your own actions and not someone else's magic is undermined when the movie starts connecting a bunch of magical dots to the fairy godmother from Cinderella and the wishing star from Pinocchio. It feels like the family animation equivalent of woo-woo astrology. Similarly, it's hard for the formidable and very human charisma of the stars from the Marvels to take center stage when there's so much tedious mythologizing and obligatory laser battling going on in most Marvel projects. It seems like this movie's solution was to impose a bunch of Marvel bullshit on the story, then hastily yank it out of the movie at the last minute, leaving it both charming and borderline incoherent. No wonder that audiences seemed more receptive to Elemental. Whatever the movie's problems, and it has plenty, it's true to its title, in that the characters and themes do feel like fundamental building blocks, rather than figures arriving pre-franchised within an inch of their lives. For the moment, Pixar has staved off the feeling of a brand eating its own tail, though Inside Out 2 is coming next summer to offer a tougher test. Can't argue with this article. And a lot of people are talking. I mean, what's really been interesting, I think, about all of this, all of our commentary about what's happened to our franchises. And look, here's the thing, and I'll be upfront about this. The idea that now the movies that are being made by the studios are no longer just being made for domestic audiences, but they're being made for the whole world is absolutely true. And when they're being made for the whole world, that means all people. And representation does, in fact, matter. That's why when Disney does a movie like Coco, which I loved, delved into a different culture, delved into the Mexican Day of the Dead, I loved it. Do you know why? Because it was authentic. Did anybody watch Coco and think to themselves they're not going to watch a movie about this because they don't believe in immigration at the southern border of the United States? No. It was a great, wonderful, imaginative, beautiful film that stayed true to the story it's telling. And look, I think that anybody, it doesn't matter what the story's about, you can tell a story that could be, if you're talking about black culture deep in Africa, if it's a great story, people will watch it. Set a story there. No one's going to come at you and say, well, this movie's so woke. No, they won't. You can tell a story about anybody, any people, any shape, size, color, creed, religion, sexuality. Well, Disney strays away from that because it's a family brand, which I understand. But authenticity is what is being stripped of our entertainment. It's being stripped from it. The stories that are being told are no longer authentic to themselves. And that's the problem. They're fulfilling, first and foremost, make no mistake, they're designed to make money. That's what everything is. This is a product. It's a widget. We might love these IPs, but once they become an IP, when they were making Star Trek originally in the 60s, they were making exactly the show they wanted to. They were fighting the network every step of the way because there was not enough time and not enough money. They did what they could with what they had. They didn't know it was ever going to be here. It got canceled early after 3 seasons. It was always fighting for its ratings. It wasn't the franchise that it was supposed to be, and the people that were making it just happened to be making a television show. So what they were doing was as pure as they could make it. I think my favorite show on TV right now is For All Mankind. And that was a show that from the beginning was melodramatic. It borderlines sometimes on a soap opera, but it also has great alternative history. I love the show because it wears its heart on its sleeve and it is authentic. And at the end of the day, it's given me great speculative science fiction, great alternate history, and characters that I love. But I'll tell you something. For All Mankind is the science fiction version of General fucking Hospital, and I am there for it because it's authentic. And I love it. I love it. And it also, over the 4 seasons, has some of the best LGBTQ representation, best representation of immigration problems, best representation of all kinds of things. And it does it right because it's part of the story being told. And it's not so much that you can't, if you're no longer being authentic. You know, the great thing about Captain America Winter Soldier is that story was telling a great story about Steve Rogers. Remember, we saw him mostly during World War II, during the 40s, early 30s, 40s, or late 30s, early 40s, in First Avenger. Well, here is now Captain America, where what he believed in, his vision of America that was forged during World War II, well, it's a much different America now. So Captain America the Winter Soldier, at its core, is a great story about how Captain America himself has to come to grips with what America has become, what the world has become. And it's not the world that he thinks he's in. And that's what that story is about. And it works beautifully. And everything in that movie is in the service of that tale. That's what the MCU did so well. Beginning with Iron Man 1, a story of one man's redemption. And all, same with Thor. That core group of 3 characters all of their movies, for the most part, I mean, yes, okay, Dark World might not have been as successful, and yes, Iron Man 2 leaned a little too much into setting up the MCU, but those movies, especially when you go back and you watch them now, are very satisfying. Because the stories are true to themselves. Once you start trying to base the story you're going to tell on analytics and money and all that, you're fucked. You're fucked. And that's what all of this is about. And what we're not getting is the honesty and the authenticity of storytelling. That's why all this shit's failing. I mean, literally, when you have people commenting, and it depends how you do it. Look, Doctor Who, I'll flat out tell you, I think Russell T. Davies' Torchwood Season 3, a.k.a. Torchwood Children of Earth, is one of the 5 greatest hours of science fiction television of the last 20 years. I only knew Captain Jack. And look, I was all there for the queer representation in Captain Jack. Let me tell you, I'm a straight guy. I'd fuck Captain Jack Harkness. He's a hunk of burning love. I love John Barrowman. And I'm just saying, I had no idea. I didn't care that he was having same-sex relationships. They were really well done. Russell T. Davies can do these stories and make them work. And if you watch Torchwood Children of Earth, I'm telling you, you're going to feel for a same-sex relationship like you haven't felt for a same-sex relationship since Brokeback Mountain. Maybe not. Maybe that's too much. I love Brokeback Mountain, and that got me too. But I'm just saying, so Russell T. Davies knows what's up. And he can do all kinds of representation and make it fucking work. And you don't walk away from Children of Earth thinking to yourself they were pushing some agenda. Because that fucking story is great. And it's true to itself. And it is fucked up. I remember, I have to tell you, when I was watching Children of Earth for the first time, I had never seen a Tortured episode. I'd only seen Captain Jack in Doctor Who. And someone told me it was really, really good. So I get the Blu-ray. I go home. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. People who've watched this channel for a long time know I've told the story a million times. I'll tell it again. I put in the first hour. It's a 5-hour show. 1 o'clock in the morning. I watched all 5 episodes. It was that fucking good. I was so riveted by it. I'm like this. And when it finally is revealed what's going on, I was like, fuck. Sorry, I'm swearing a lot. It lived up. Normally, you read a lot of things. When the mystery is finally revealed, it's kind of a letdown, and then it's just perfunctory how the good guys are going to win. Not this time. Torchwood Children of Earth is peak Russell T. Davies. And I love it so. So it's possible to do all kinds of representation and storytelling wonderfully well. Just depends on how it's done. But now I think what we're getting is the decisions that are being made for these stories. Like, I look at Marvel's and I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck is Marvel supposed to be? Here you have a character, and I'm so tired. Captain Marvel made $1 billion. Captain Marvel should have had a second movie that was her Empire Strikes Back. Why they didn't do this, I don't know. People are going to be like, well, Rob, Captain Marvel was shoehorned between Infinity War and Endgame, so of course it was going to make $1 billion. It wasn't very good. I get it. I've heard it. But it doesn't matter. If you tell a great story about Captain Marvel and give Brie Larson a great part to play, you could make a kick-ass movie. They should have given her an Empire Strikes Back level story that was personal to her. Something that maybe during the 5 years during the snap, that something we don't know about, where she was out in the galaxy, maybe she fucked up. Maybe when she's trying to help whole populations that are reeling from losing half their people, that she did something terrible. Maybe an accident. Horrible that she had to atone for, that we've never seen. Guilt. Something that was put her through a crucible that will forge her into something new. Instead, we get the fucking Marvels. And look, I liked Miss Marvel. Amon Villani, she's delightful. The actors that play her parents, great. Loved all that. But why are you making a Marvel-level character and then injecting these TV characters? And look, Monica Rambeau is my Captain Marvel. I grew up reading the Avengers in the 80s, 70s and 80s. I want Monica Rambeau. I want that fro, and I want that black and white costume. I love that character. She kicked ass in the Avengers. So Carol Danvers, it was Marvel and it was Monica Rambeau. Those are my Captain Marvels. Carol Danvers, to me, Carol Danvers was Miss Marvel. Carol Danvers got thrown off a bridge by Rogue when she shows up in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in Avengers Annual 10. So Carol Danvers, as much as I love that costume in the first movie, not my Captain Marvel. Monica Rambeau is my Captain Marvel. Why they didn't go with her, I will never know. I mean, here's literally a black female character that kicks ass, who's awesome, who's had many other different incarnations, but she was never. I mean, if you like Coffee and if you like Foxy Brown, if you like, I mean, it's Pam Grier in space. How do you fuck that up? I mean, to be honest, I really like how she's portrayed. Loved her in WandaVision, liked her in the Marvels. But god damn, son, give me what I want. But what I really want is good characters, stories that are great and well told. And the Marvels was about the last thing in the world that the audience that loved the MCU for the last 15 years wanted to see. What relevance, what story was that really telling? Whose story was that telling? I'm watching this movie, I'm like, okay, this is entertaining enough, but I'm like, I don't want to just be entertained anymore. I want to know Marvel, right now, Marvel Phase 4 and 5, everything in it. I might even enjoy Loki a bit. I enjoyed WandaVision. Multiverse of Madness, fine. No Way Home. As I've said, Eternals I even liked. But to me, let's be honest. If all of it, I'm talking from Black Widow on, went away, nobody would care. And that's stunning. That's stunning. If Marvel were to say tomorrow, Phases 4 and 5 were a mistake, we're going to start. And by the way, I also like Shang-Chi a great deal, but not as where we are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's not good. We should be getting banger after banger. But I don't think audiences would particularly care if they said all of our TV shows and all of our Phase 4 and 5 were none of it happened. We're wiping it away. No one would care. They wouldn't care. Look, the general audience doesn't follow this stuff the way we do. But you look at what Disney stock price is down overall. Disney, starting with the Little Mermaid back in the late 80s, completely renovated their brand. It was a moribund brand. They weren't doing very well in the 80s. And the Renaissance began with The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. And even Disney just remaking their animated classics. I mean, you look at their brand, it's like, when did you guys forget your core mission? Who's making these decisions? What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? It's weird. I mean, I do not understand the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I really am perplexed by it from a storytelling and business standpoint. I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to make of any of it, because here's the thing. Here's how you know that the MCU fucked up. At the end of Endgame, really from Spider-Man Far From Home, which you saw a little bit of it, if you think about what happened, all the battle when the battle's won and the battle's done, we kind of won, so we'll shed our victory tear. If you're a Buffy fan, tell me, how do we keep... Okay, anyway, so here you have a traumatized population of Earth, right? What the Marvel Cinematic Universe was so good at doing for the first phases 1, 2, and 3, for the 23 movies that made up the Infinity Saga, was building the larger storyline on the previous films. Well, the Earth, it's as if none of that happened. They did not incorporate what happened in Endgame into, like, whenever you watch your favorite thing, like, remember, after the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, oh my God, what was going to happen? The ramifications, the balance of power shifted. Well, after this happens to humanity, what is the role of a superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now? What is the role? What are they supposed to do? They've never even addressed any of that. You wouldn't even know. I mean, they have these world-shaking events. You've got Arishem the Judge. You've got Shang-Chi and their magic land and the Ten Rings and all this stuff. Like, I kept wondering, like, are the people that are living in Fantasyland in Shang-Chi, did any of them get snapped away in the blip? Did they? The ancient gods of Egypt that were in Moon Knight, did they get snapped away? How did they feel about Thanos coming to Earth? None of that stuff was ever dealt with. It has been ultimately they did not build on what they set up in the Infinity Saga. The Infinity Saga, think of those 23 movies as the end of chapter 1 or act 1 of your movie. They really should have been thinking about so your next 23 movies are act 2. So it's suddenly like, where are they going to go? Like, what are they going to do? They should have been thinking about the fact that they're going to make 69 Marvel Cinematic movies. 69. That is we're going to do 69 fucking movies. Each section's going to be 23 movies. You know, I would have gone into that board meeting. I would have been to Bob Iger and I would have said, "Yo, we're going to make 69 Marvel movies. We're going to make the view is always going to be great." 69. Think about it that way. So they had 20, and they should have thought about those the way they thought of the Infinity Saga. Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. You would have thought that this would have been a no-brainer. They didn't do that. Why not? I don't know. But I would have certainly thought that way, because what you've done is, and really what the overarching, and you could take all of this from Marvel Comics, the overarching theme of what should be happening in all of these movies that you realize at the end is, what does it mean to be human? Not superhuman, but human. And that the influence of superhumans, and you could have gone so far as it could have been Enlightenment or whatever. The age of superheroes is what brings humanity up to the next level. And of course, what would have happened, now that I'm making this shit up on the spot, it would have been the conflict with the X-Men, Homo Superior, which is what the X-Men are, Homo Superior replacing Homo Sapiens. So you would have had, and that would have happened halfway through, and that conflict, so X-Men versus Avengers, and you get to the end, and you're literally fighting for the soul of humanity itself, or some shit like that. I don't know. I'm pulling this out of my ass. But as a lifelong Marvel Comics reader, that's what their overarching thing should be. So then you have a theme where you're addressing. It's like writing a 5-paragraph essay. You have your thesis. You state your thesis. You support your thesis with 3 more paragraphs, and then you conclude. You bring it on home. That's what the Marvel Cinematic Universe should have been doing. I'm watching this. I don't know what I've watched. Phases 4 and 5 have just been like this ongoing mess that doesn't seem to connect to anything. I thought it would, but it doesn't. And I think that's because they've lost the plot. Suddenly Disney Plus, like, well, you have to make all these shows for Disney Plus. Star Wars, same thing. What the hell? What's going on with Star Wars? How do you fuck up Star Wars? There's how do you make an Obi-Wan movie that's not really about Obi-Wan? There's a book, an Obi-Wan Kenobi novel. It's right there. Go do that. I mean, or do what any great storyteller has done. Go, okay, we have to make an Obi-Wan movie. So Obi-Wan Kenobi, where he is left at the end of the prequels, is in a place that's pretty ripe for storytelling. Make a movie about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Don't put Princess Leia in it. Make a film about Obi-Wan Kenobi and his new responsibilities as the overseer of Luke. But the galaxy has other ideas, and he gets wrapped up in a great story. Tell me a fucking Man with No Name story that isn't Boba Fett, but Obi-Wan Kenobi. Give me Shane. Give me The Searchers. Go do what George Lucas did. He's like, I want to make a space fantasy. I'm going to go watch Kurosawa movies and get an idea. Do that. The reason everyone is failing is because no one knows what the fuck they're doing anymore, and they should, because it's not hard. It's not hard. But they don't know. They don't know because money and analytics and all that, which is what everybody's looking at, they don't have anything to do. Nothing to do with great storytelling. And yet analytics and data, you read all these articles about AI or whatever, it's all data. None of that has anything to do with great storytelling. None of it. You can run the numbers all you want. You're not going to get what makes a great story out of it. You're not. Ever. And that's the problem. That's where we're at the end of the day. And that's why everyone's losing money. All of these, I mean, it's like streaming. What did you think was going to happen? I don't know. It's incredibly frustrating. And it's incredibly frustrating to be a lifelong consumer of this material and see it so misunderstood. BK Dan says, Miracle Day is better than Children of Earth? Dude, come on. Miracle Day? I'm sorry. Miracle Day started out great, but man, did that go off the rails. You cannot tell me Miracle Day. Look, remember, that's when they brought Torchwood to America. I have to say, no. No. Let's see. Wow, there's a lot of, you guys have fired in a lot of, let me catch up here. Let's see. Tom Jr. Jackson says, watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington last night. Great film and a must-see. Still holds up. Get well soon, Rob. Something is on its way to you as well. Uh-oh. I hope something good. Yeah, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. There's a great movie that you don't see much of anymore. Grinning Wombat says, have you played Cyberpunk? I've played Cyberpunk, and I did watch the anime. It's right up my alley, and it is, just like you say, it's right up your alley. I can definitely see a future like that for us in the real world. Oh, I definitely think so, too. I mean, as glitchy as that game was at first, I really liked playing it. And I do want to get that Johnny Silverhand's hot toy one day. I thought it was cool. It's cool. Scott Bartholomew says, I want to see the full interview with the TNG cast. Yeah, I posted for the 25th anniversary back in 2012. I did up in Calgary at the Calgary Expo. The whole cast was up there celebrating the 25th anniversary of TNG. I hosted a roundtable conversation with the entire cast for our Blu-rays. It was actually my idea that we had them all together. And then I sat down with each individual actor for hours at a time and interviewed them. All of those things can be seen on the Blu-ray they're on the Blu-rays for Next Generation if you buy the complete season. That particular interview is on season 2. All of that material was re-released 2 weeks ago or last week in the Picard Legacy box set. So you can get all of TNG, the TNG movies, and Picard seasons 1, 2, and 3. Or if you don't want to get that stuff, you can just get the episodes. And by the way, they're all great. And also there are individual TNG discs where they actually edited the two-parters into movie versions, so they all run as one piece, that we did even more special features for that are not on the full series. So Best of Both Worlds, Redemption, Unification, Chain of Command, and then All Good Things. They released the 90-minute version, but we did special features for it. So Scott, there you can get it. A Grinning Wombat says Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty expansion featuring Idris Elba is literally a love letter to the Bond franchise. It's truly a perfect blend of genres. Ooh. Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. I love that. That Phantom Liberty would be a great title for a Bond movie. I like that. Lover of Green sends in a super chat and says, part of the reason I can't stand modern journalism, minus the lack of authenticity, is their "Coof is back" coverage. Even in 2023, 90% of America is back to normal, but the journos can't move on. Oh, they will, though. We've got a new pneumonia, and China's going back to masking. So, yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, they can't. I mean, obviously, clearly, what is it now, endemic? Instead of a pandemic, we're going to have it always. I mean, this is the third time I've had COVID. I don't know what it's doing to my heart or my insides, but it still sucks. But yeah, guess people can't let it go. I just wish. I mean, look. The problem with what happened during the pandemic is that nobody was authentic about it. We live in a counterfeit world where the truth is been swept away. Everyone's lying to you. People are trying to pick your pockets, and that's the frustrating part. Is we're living in this world now, and I'm an optimist, but it's really frustrating to be living in a world now like this, in a world where everyone is out to fuck you. I don't like that, and not in the way I like to watch, but it's bad. It's bad. But yeah, this whole thing with the pandemic, no one told the truth. But to be fair, I don't think anybody really knew. Everyone was scrambling around, trying to work it out, stop panics from happening and all kinds of crazy shit. And then, once the money kicks in and profit and people go crazy and and what does it do? If you're inauthentic, it hurts everyone in the long run. It's all going to set us off a cliff. There's only so much profit you can get before we're all going to die. Anonymous says, unlike phases 1 through 3 where you had character solo films and popping up again in other characters' movies and eventually leading to an Avengers film, phase 4 or 5 has none of that. It's not an event anymore. It's just your average DCEU film. I don't even think it's that. I mean, one of the things about Marvel is it felt like you had a plan, that they were stringing you along and each individual movie worked on its own and led up to things. I mean, Winter Soldier going into Civil War and all that, and the way they went back to the comics and used them as jumping off points, like Brubaker's run on Winter Soldier. I mean, the Age of Ultron movie, by the way, which aged better. I liked Age of Ultron when I saw it more than most, but it got better because of how much it meant to the greater universe as a whole. But yeah, it's these movies are not only are they average, but they're not even interesting. Like, Winter Soldier's really interesting. Civil War, you have Tony Stark and Steve Rogers at odds with one another, splitting up the team, and their beef is very legit and valid. It's good stuff. That's great storytelling. Scott Bartholomew says, I don't give a shit about the Marvel franchise anymore. I don't either. I'm all in for the Titanverse. And give me more kaiju movies. By the way, how amazing. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but Godzilla Minus One is opening this week. How crazy is it that the most satisfying franchise movie might be a franchise movie from a franchise that started in 1954 that takes us back to World War II, made for $15 million by the Japanese. Come on. How crazy is that? But you know what? Just like with their comics, do you know why? Say it with me now. Because it's fucking authentic. It's authentic. The people at Toho know what the fuck they're doing. Japanese creators, whether they're making manga, whether they're making anime, whether they're making movies like this, they're not following some agenda. They're not trying to pander. No, the Panderverse says it all, but the Japanese are making, for all of their predilections, they're making movies that are authentic to what they want to make. You know, it's like continuity in Sing. You know, when he had Marlon MacGyver's, people might not like the scene, but he's gone to this woman's cabin and he's got her, who later becomes his wife, he's got her on the ground, you know, and he says, go or stay, but do it because it is what you wish to do. We don't have that anymore. You know, I was talking to some industry friends yesterday and in the motion picture business, and people don't have a lot of faith anymore in the business. I mean, when you have Warner Brothers canceling Coyote versus Acme, a movie that I don't understand why the trailers for that, why we haven't seen that. I did my last observations on this. I still don't understand the folly of this. I want to see this movie so bad. Go back and look up. Go to the New Yorker. Was it New Yorker? Atlantic? New York Atlantic. Just Coyote versus Acme. Just read the article. It's hilarious. Tip comes in from Anonymous, who says, Disney is all about representation, and guess what? The Marvels flopped. Five Nights at Freddy's, which had a day-and-date release, made more money, and I never even played the game. A 3-hour movie about people talking by Christopher Nolan made more money, but Disney will do is, put a chick in it and make it gay. Well, look, and where that comes from is from the Panderverse. I just want everyone to understand that. What's really interesting, too, is, remember, this is not, there are good intentions here. But the problem is you now have creatives which have a tendency to be, where creative people are definitely more alternative lifestyle minded. And usually creatives are able to navigate those waters. Like, look, I've worked in the entertainment business. The first movie I ever worked on, I was propositioned by a guy. I was young and pretty then. Did it bother me? No. Did I say anything? No. We were friends. And we had a great time together. Once I told him, I'm like, bro, I'm not gay. But I appreciate you. I was such a twink back then. It's fine. I had so many gay friends. I've been hit on so many times since I was 13 years old. Did it bother me? No. But I understood. I'm like, okay, I get it. It doesn't. But when that's all you're doing, and you want to inject all of this identity politics, look, it's here for a reason. People who had marginalized voices, who were never heard, now have a voice. All different kinds of people. Of course, they should use those voices. And what they want to do is they want to go into these very popular franchises that they never had representation for them in before, and put that representation in, because they know what it was like to be their younger selves and not see any inkling of who they were represented in the pop culture they love. I get that. And they're not wrong. The problem is, when you're finally in a position where you can do that, that impulse overtakes the impulse to tell a great story with great characters. You so want to make sure that your younger self, or someone new, a kid, the kid today that was you at that age, is going to see something in one they love and have that representation, that you feel that you're going to bring it to them. I get that. And they're not wrong. The problem is, if you take a classical story paradigm and then change it around, and making sure that your younger self, or the person that is you, that person grappling with identity issues, grappling with their sexuality at a young age, and they're watching their favorite science fiction, fantasy, or horror short story, or reading it, or seeing their movies or TV shows, you know what it's like to not have that representation. And you're trying to give that representation to the kid that you wished, the kid that's there today that'll get that. I get that. That is a strong, valid thing to want to do. However, when you're doing it at the expense of classical paradigms, that's problematic. That's why when I watch something where I think representation's good, like For All Mankind, and to a certain extent, Tortured Children of Earth, I feel I learned something and get something out of it. Like, I'll watch anything. Straight, gay, I don't care. My friend Shade sent me my first gay porn tapes that I ever saw, and I was 14. I watched some hardcore gay sex. It was really interesting. Didn't turn me on, but I watched it. Hot dudes fucking. Sure, why not? It was a form of sexuality and human behavior, and it was interesting, the setup, even how it was shot. Not my thing, but I'll watch it, and I didn't sit there and go, oh my God. Although I will say this. To be honest, it was actually 2 tapes. I had them, and when I finally was 16 years old, I had been hiding them in my room, and I drove to the airport and put them in. I drove like 45 minutes to the airport and dropped them into an airport garbage can, so no one found them. That's a true story. But, so I'll watch anything as long as it's true to itself, as long as it's authentic. And thank you, Shade Roop, for sending me, that's his real name, Shade Roop. And he has been nothing in my whole life if not authentic. We're still friends. Knew him in junior high school. We're friends today. Thank you, Shade, for sending me my first gay pornography on VHS. I'm glad I got to open it before my mom did. Thank you. I still think, I dodged a bullet there. Sadhu says, new season of Fargo is great. Definitely recommend. I've loved all the seasons of Fargo. Noah Hawley's a great creator. I'm a huge Juno Temple fan. I haven't watched it yet. Can't wait to watch it. Gonna catch it up. I can't wait to see it. So, Murray Reich sends in a tip and says, the reason why Captain Marvel did so well was because the post-credit scene in Infinity War with the beeper gave us much curiosity that we wanted to see where it all led to. The Marvels, on the other hand, was just, whatever, didn't lead to anything. Murray, you hit it on the head. That's the problem with the MCU now. It's not leading anywhere. None of the movies have led into another movie. We don't even know who are in the Avengers. I don't know. Who are... They talk about the Avengers. We've said this on the show before. Doctor Strange will say, well, I can get you back on the lunchbox. Which lunchbox? The last time we saw the Avengers, their base was a smoldering ruin. They battled Thanos. We don't even know who are the Avengers. Thor's off, Love and Thunder. The Hulk's hanging out doing yoga. What Avengers? What are they doing? Hawkeye's shopping for Christmas presents. I mean, it's like, we don't know. I don't know what's going on. And by the way, with the Marvels, they're talking about the 10 rings and all that stuff. And anyway, disappointing, I would say, to no end. Very, very disappointing. What can you do? I don't know. Let me just put a chicken in it and make it like it's put a chicken in it and make it, sends in a super sticker. I thank you for that. Sonder Atelier says Marvel should have been done with Beast. Marvel should have done with Beast what they did with Tony, a POV character. Had him join the Avengers at the end of Endgame in human form. Then we follow his mutation throughout West Coast Avengers until he joins Charles to get help. That's a great idea. I love that idea. But they didn't. And how can you not look, if the rumors were to be believed, and I don't know if they're true or not, that they couldn't really do anything with the X-Men until contracts ran out until 2025, I believe that there could be a shred of truth in that. And that's why Fox can get away, or they can get away with doing a Wolverine, Deadpool movie and all that stuff. But I don't know. I do not understand why they would leave the X-Men on the table. I mean, they've brought back 2 Spider-Men from Sony. Why didn't they start and interweave their X-Men? I don't know. Fodfire says, shout out from New Orleans. Man, do I love New Orleans. I want to go back there. I love New Orleans so much. I've been there, 3 times? I love it. Scott Bartholomew says, Disney bowed to the social engineering puppet masters and are now producing convoluted shit sandwiches for the masses. Yeah, I mean, lean into... There's a reason why classical storytelling still works. Look, and I think that the Haley Berry thing, I thought she was great as Ariel in Little Mermaid. She looks beautiful. She looks like a mermaid. She looked like a fantasy character. She's a great singer. I thought she was really, really, really great. But they had to know that they were going to run into the people. If you're gonna translate an animated property to live action, and you decide that you're going to make a significant alteration to your main character, you have to expect the backlash they got. I'm not saying they didn't make a bad choice. They didn't make a bad choice. But, it's a Hans Christian Andersen tale. And then everybody gets all up in arms. I actually thought they did a pretty elegant, Ariel lives down south. She's not in the North Atlantic. I thought that made a lot of sense. I thought she was a perfect casting. But what did they think was going to happen? I mean, I thought as far as casting Ariel that she was delightful. But just the world around us, you know, what are you going to do? You had to have expected that. And it wasn't, in a way, it's kind of not fair to her to put her in that position. And that's been happening a lot. And it's a bummer. But yeah. I don't know. It's too bad because I thought, you know, they did a pretty good job. The new songs, you know, Lin-Manuel Miranda kind of disappointed me with his songs. I was expecting a little bit more. But anyway, Video Hunter D says, Rob, was Risky Business a formative movie for you? Oh my God, what a great question. Video Hunter D, you're the man. For those of you who don't know, Risky Business celebrates its 40th anniversary this year, which is almost over. I love Risky Business. It's one of my favorite teen films of the 80s. Some of my other favorite, I mean, Risky Business, Rumblefish is definitely one of them. The Chocolate War is one of them. The John Hughes movies don't make the cut. Maybe Ferris Bueller, and I do love Some Kind of Wonderful. But yeah, Risky Business, totally my favorite teen film of the 80s, bar none. More than Fast Times. I loved Risky Business. And to find out Miles from Risky Business, later went on to Moonlighting, turned 70. Wow. Crazy. Risky Business. I could probably recite that entire movie. That was the first time I saw Joey Pants, Rebecca De Mornay, and Tom Cruise. Come on. Say what the fuck. What the fuck gives you freedom? I'm telling you. You can't say it. Can't do it. So your parents are going out of town. You've got the house all to yourself. Say what the fuck. If you guys have not seen Risky Business, why? Tangerine Dream score, truly erotic, great irreverent plot, and boy is it not PC anymore. I cannot, and Tom Cruise stars in it. You if you haven't seen Risky Business, and I wouldn't assume that you would have. It's 40 years old. It was totally a watershed film for me. I loved it. I've seen it way more times than I can possibly. Well, you know, I've seen it a lot. Scott Bartholomew says Mud's Woman would make a good porn film. I'm surprised somebody. You're right. I'm surprised somebody hasn't made that. You know, there was Star Trek, X-rated Star Trek, Mud's Women. That would have been a good thing to adapt, actually. It's not a bad idea, Scott. I like the way you think. But listen, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kind souls, gentle beings, I'm going to bring this show to a close because I can only imagine how annoying it must be to listen to me. But, yeah, I'll be back tomorrow on the John Campea Show. I'll be back here doing some stuff. And, yeah, I want to thank everybody for generously supporting this channel via Super Chats and tips. There will not be a member call this Saturday because I am appearing at LA Comic-Con in the afternoon with director Joe Lynch. And we are going to be talking about William Friedkin. And we're going to show his Twilight Zone episode that he directed for the mid-'80s Twilight Zone Nightcrawlers, based on a story by one of my favorite horror authors, Robert R. McCammon. So come on down to the LA Comic-Con, and hey, maybe afterwards, after the panel, we'll go to a bar somewhere. You know what? I should just say that. Hey, if you're in the LA area this weekend, or this coming weekend, come down to the LA Comic-Con. We'll have a Let's Get Physical, or not. What am I saying? A Robservations. What show am I on? A Robservations meetup afterwards. We'll go get some drinks. Talk imagination connoisseur stuff. We'll do that. I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for being a great moderator. He's a great man and a great moderator. So thank you for that. And all those things. And I want to thank everybody for being here, for being a great audience. And we'll see. We got a lot of stuff coming up to talk about on the channel. But I'm going to see if I'm not positive for COVID anymore. I made it this far. Thanks for coming with me. Remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. I made it pretty far. Thanks for coming with me tonight.